Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razak at CMTrading. Today is January 4, 2023, and today is Wednesday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, oil tanks. But first, looking at the major economic events of today at 5 p.m. South African time. Out of the United States, we have an ISM manufacturing PMI numbers coming out, and then at 9 p.m. South African time, out of the United States, an FOMC meeting minutes numbers coming out. Now, looking at the various markets, we're watching the Forex symbols. U.S. dollar retreats versus the Canadian dollar and the Japanese yen. Looking at the indices, the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ trading sideways by and large, even though it did gain a little bit yesterday. Looking at commodities, gold continues to climb, while oil tanks. Looking at the stock markets, mostly gains, but that's before this FOMC numbers coming out. Now, looking at cryptocurrencies, there was a bit of a gain for Bitcoin, but still in a very tight range. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So here we're looking at the USD Canadian dollar, and you could see this massive decline after hitting this 136.84. That is a bona fide resistance. And we retreated quite aggressively down to this 135.63 level. Now, I do anticipate a bounce at a certain point, okay? But just keep an eye on this, because this is really something that could develop. Now, we know that the Canadian dollar is very closely related to the price of oil. As oil gains, Canadian dollar gains. But there was a sell-off in oil yesterday, so it's kind of interesting to see that it's still relatively holding itself. Now, looking at the USD Japanese yen, you could see that the dollar continues to get weaker day to day, you know, as it's testing this 130, broke that 130 to 129, but just really flirting with a major support level, and that's really important to note. Okay, this really 131 to 130-ish level is quite significant. Okay, previous resistance, we broke out of it, subsequent support, and now we're breaking just below it. So it's an interesting place to be to see if it maybe will continue to break lower. Now, looking at some of the others, we're jumping into gold. Let's take a look at it as it continues to push higher. 1860 day to day, it continues to push higher. And that is just a great sign for gold as it's hitting major resistance-ish area coming into it at this 1860 to 1870 level. Okay, that's really important for us as well. Now, looking at crude oil, we tanked from $80 down to $75 a barrel. A major tankage there, as this is really correcting itself from day to day. You can see that. I mean, it hit that $81 and then boom. Now, we are hitting a supportish level at $75. So keep that in mind today, as this may bounce off of it. Now, you know, altogether, I generally just stick to the technicals, the simple technicals. So just a matter of interest, if it does break the $75, we could surely see it back in that $71. Now, looking at the U.S. markets, the Dow Jones, slight gain yesterday to 33,340-ish level. Nothing doing here, okay? I expect us to be consolidating here for the next month and really just be trading sideways. If we look at the tech stocks, they also, NASDAQ also trading just sideways first couple of days of January. So keep that in mind. Now, JP Morgan did gain nicely yesterday to 135, pushing that upper limit there. And let's see if it does continue to break higher. It does have resistance-ish area up here, so keep that in mind. Look at Facebook, actually got a gap up and a go to 124. That's an interesting move for Facebook, which has been in the past quite weak. Now, jumping into Apple, it's just flirting with disaster at 125 on the bottom of the range, not really jumping off of it, okay, which is something of concern. Now, lastly, looking at Intel, okay, as it gapped up, it sold off, hit that moving day average. So I do anticipate it'll continue selling off unless there's some positive news from tonight's FOMC. And lastly, looking at Bitcoin, 16,853. Yeah, it's trading in a range, okay, but every time it gains nicely, it doesn't break above that 6,900. I'd like to see it break above it with some gusto, with some volume, and that would give me some more conviction to say that it may continue going up higher. So keep that in mind as this is still unfolding. This is Fred Razak. I want to wish everybody a great trading day. Thank you.